It's that time again. The annual conference of the American Society of Ag Consultants, otherwise known as ASAC, is going to be held in Fort Myers, Florida, this November 4th and 5th. Kurt Covington is one of 9 professionals who will address the conference. The other speakers who will cover a wide range of topics represent Florida Farm Bureau, Florida Citrus Commission, University of Tennessee Institute of Agriculture, National Ag Law Center, Risk Mitigators and Advisors, Tyler Associates, as well as the lead economist for dairy at CoBank, and myself, Chrissy Wozniak from North American Ag. The day and a half of presentations will be followed by ag tours on Tuesday afternoon at Echo Farms, one of my favorite places here in Fort Myers. Attendees will experience farming at its most creative, with unique demonstrations, plants, and techniques being used to help farmers and urban gardeners in developing countries. A second tour at Echo will showcase simple technologies that can improve food, water, and shelter for millions of people. A third tour of a hydroponic grower is also being planned. For more information and to register, visit www.agconsultants.org. That's www.agconsultants.org. See you there. Hi, and welcome to the North American Ag Spotlight. I'm Chrissy Wozniak. My guest today is a crop consultant at Embrun Co-op and is from Eastern Ontario, Canada. And she's been an inspiration since the moment I met her years ago. I don't even remember where now, which farm show. I know it was a farm show. I'm not sure which one, but she's only become more of an inspiration since that time. And as she's recently faced a battle with cancer and has shared her journey from day one with her beloved friends and family in agriculture. And as the first Ag Spotlight episode of the new year, 2022, I could think of no one more worthy of having in the spotlight than the ever hope-filled and agriculturally passionate Kelsey Banks. Welcome, Kelsey, and thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you for your kind words, and thank you for having me on today.
So first of all, can you tell me about why you have a love of farming and where it came from?
Yeah, so to be honest, I think it's that I just, grew up into it. Like I was literally born into farming. Just like both sides of my family, both my mom's side and dad's side, they both had farms and everything. And then, and just growing up, I was always surrounded by like agriculture, business, because like with both sides of my grandparents, they both worked in ag business, and like both sets worked in ag business along with farming. Plus, my dad being an agronomist and everything, I grew up around it, and just it was instilled into me like how important agriculture is and how many opportunities there are within agriculture. And it really, the love started there and kind of kept growing. And with my grandpa specifically, my grandpa Curtis, we started growing pumpkins, and and through that love for pumpkins, like people joke around a little bit and say I'm the pumpkin queen.
Yeah.
But I do love me pumpkins. That's for sure. But stuff like that. I just, it just, as I say, I was literally, I feel like born into it, and I love it.
That's cool. So what is it about agronomy in particular that's so fulfilling to you?
I think for me, I guess I grew up more on the agronomy side of things rather than the livestock side of things. But for me, I remember seeing, I remember growing up and seeing, like a stressed out farmer that my dad or someone was working with. And then, they would do some recommendations or they would help them out with something. And it was just a look of joy. And for me, that's why, I love what I do, but I also get I get to be a part of that. And for me, like agronomy, it just keeps growing. Like there's it's one sector of agriculture that's really should be split up into like 10 sectors. just with precision agriculture. And to me, it's just so cool to see like something growing like that. And it's a business, and it's just, it's great. Like I love the world of agronomy and learning more and more.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's never ending, right? It's so cool.
Yeah.
And what's your role at Embrun Co-op now?
So I'm a crops consultant with Embrun Co-op, and if you don't know where Embrun is, it's in Eastern Ontario. So I always say the Great Eastern Ontario because it's awesome here. And my role is mainly working with farmers and kind of in Eastern Ontario, mainly, I should say, in Eastern Ontario, and helping them put together like their cropping plans and their soil health plans, and making recommendations for product, and then also a bit of a sales aspect to it as well. So it's pretty great. I absolutely love it. I've been working in egg retail now for 5 years, I think. And it's been nothing but awesome. So lots of learning. You get a little bit of everything in egg retail. So, it's not just seed, it's not just chemical, like crop protection, it's everything. I love it.
That's so cool. So now switching gears a little bit, tell me a little bit about your battle with the now famous villain Bob.
Oh boy, where would you like me to start is a better question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with a grade 2 astrocytoma, which is a form of a brain tumor, a cancerous brain tumor, on January 23rd, 2020. So hard to believe that was only a year and a little bit ago, but almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Flies. And when I got diagnosed, I did not see it coming at all. I'd Chrissy, like I'd go to farm shows. I was always really busy, like involved with everything. And I was kind of like living the travel, like the
Carney
work life and it was everything. I was farming at the same time. I don't know how I did it looking back. But I was doing a lot, and but because I was doing a lot, I was stressed a lot. And so I would get headaches every once in a while in kind of a few previous months ahead. And I always thought it was just a headache, November, it's a pretty gray month and everything. And I thought maybe it was just the weather, because I tend to be affected by weather. My headaches do. And then in December, and this might be a little TMI, but I want to talk about it because I want people to be aware of, maybe you should go get checked out. Doesn't hurt to get checked out. So in December 2019, I was waking up in the morning sometimes, and I'd have blood on my pillows, and I didn't know what it was. I just kind of like did whatever. At the time, I guess I was 26, so at the time I just kind of like, well, whatever, it's fine. Yeah, I'm exhausted, but I'm sure it's like just me working hard or something like that. And then, and at the time I had a roommate, but he lived upstairs and then I lived downstairs. So, it's not like he would have known or anything, but it actually turned out that I was having nocturnal seizures.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So basically, like while I was asleep, they were happening, and they didn't happen all the time, but they happened like frequently enough that, I was noticing. And the blood was actually from biting my tongue
wow.
Yeah. Again, didn't really put like 2 and 2 together, because what 26-year-old thinks that that anything like that is wrong. Like you just kind of keep going and going. And then and then just after Christmas, so I'm always a little bit nervous around December 28th because that was the day that I had a very bad, significant, it's called the grand mal seizure, when your whole body is going through the seizure. And it happened while I was at my grandparents in Orangeville for Christmas supper, and I ended up going to the emergency room at the hospital there, and they released me thinking that I had pneumonia. Not sure how pneumonia and cancer come together, but they put me on these antibiotics. But the good thing is that the doctor actually put me had referred me, to an ear, nose, throat specialist, because my tongue was literally like, Chrissy, I'm not exaggerating. It was like like almost like a golf ball. Like it was so swollen. Wow. So like I couldn't eat or anything. So I went and saw this ear, nose, throat specialist, Dr. Riddell in Orangeville, and he said, well, he didn't really quite know what was going on with my tongue. So he sent me in for an MRI, and again, 26 years old at the time, didn't really know what was going on, didn't understand what an MRI even really was. I just knew it was a scan. Mm-hmm. So went to Guelph and the hospital there, got an MRI done, I think it was a couple weeks later. And then all within 1 week of getting the MRI done, I was diagnosed with cancer in Toronto at St. Mike's Hospital. It was very difficult to be told that I had cancer, but for me, like the initial reaction was shock. I didn't know what to think. Mm-hmm. And then from there, while I was listening to the doctor, to be honest, I don't even remember what he said after that. He was telling me something about what was going on, and that I had to have surgery. But then I said, but I can still drive, right? And he said no. Well, and then, I feel for him that he didn't know where Drayton was, which is where I was living at the time, in a small town. And he was like, oh, well, I'm sure Drayton has public transportation.
Oh, wow.
It's like,
he's never been to Drayton.
No. Mm-hmm. So I was really upset, and I started sobbing because I couldn't believe, I'm a very independent person. To me, that losing my license at that time was worse than the cancer itself. Because I lost my independence. That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe that, I was being told well, you're not allowed to work. You're not allowed to, to drive. You're not allowed to do anything. My life literally did a 180 that day.
Wow.
And I didn't know what to do other than, and my dad, I'm very grateful for him and always will be, because the day before, I had been at a certified crop advisors workshop in Woodstock, and I didn't know what was going on because I didn't have I had my phone on me, but I didn't have any service in the room we were in. And he and my dad had been visiting my grandparents, and he was heading back east to Eastern Ontario where he lives. And he had gotten a call from the doctor, from the ear, nose, throat specialist, saying, you need, we can't get a hold of Kelsey. Is there any way you can get a hold of her? Because she needs to be downtown Toronto tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. or whatever it was. And he was obviously very concerned and didn't know what was going on. So he got a hold of me through the hotel. He called the hotel because he knew where I was and everything. And then he And then this like hotel staff like burst through the doors during the workshop and said, is there a Kelsey Banks here? And I said, I kind of looked at him like, yes. And he said, there's an important phone call for you upstairs, but you need to come now. And I thought, oh boy. And of course I immediately think, what's wrong? Like, is something wrong with my grandparents or my dad or my brothers or something? And I get on the phone and it's my dad, and he says, so Dr. Riddell called, and they wouldn't tell him any info because I'm over 18. But they called Dr. Riddell and then called me right back. So I called Dr. Riddell's office while Dr. Riddell himself answered.
Wow.
And he said, you need to be downtown Toronto at St. Mike's Hospital tomorrow morning. Your appointment with Dr. Doss, and who's a neurosurgeon, and talk with him. He thought that I may have a cyst, was what he had thought it might be, but he said he's not a neurologist, he's not a radiologist, so he can, read the scans exactly. So I just thought honestly that it was like just reading the scans. Like I didn't think anything of it. And then when I got there, and Dr. Doss was the one who diagnosed me, and he said, I still remember, like, he reached out his hands to hold my hands, and I was like so confused. Like I was like, what is going on? And then he told me, he said, he said, you seem like the kind of woman that you just like to be told straight up what's going on. And I said, yeah, I am. And he said, well, you need to know that I am diagnosing you with grade 2 cancer. At the time, they didn't know if it was an oleodendroglioma or an astrocytoma. I am diagnosing you with brain cancer. And yeah, so a lot changed in that day. I lost my license. I ended up like having to move back home, back east, after starting up my life. And I was farming on my grandparents' farm and everything, and I was doing a lot, and had to make it all come to a halt. And this was like right before COVID.
Right.
So it was tough. But I think that we all need to allow ourselves to feel the emotion. Like if something's going wrong, like you're allowed to cry.
Right.
And I think that, and you're allowed to feel angry, you're allowed to feel how you feel. But, for me, I ended up coming to acceptance and accepting that, what, I'm going to have this surgery. And at the time, he thought that I just needed surgery. So he said, oh yeah, you'll probably be back to work in like, June. So I was like, oh yeah, sure. This looks great. So went downtown Toronto again in February, like not even 3 weeks later, February 18th, I had my brain surgery, the tumor removal done, but it was only partially removed because there was 2 pieces of it that are sitting on memory and speech. And my surgery was actually done while like they put me like asleep for the like beginning, but then they woke me up in the middle of it to do tests to see like about like my memory and my like my speech and everything. Yeah, and I still remember like the like certain parts of it and everything, and it's so in a way though, you think of agriculture though and how things have moved forward in agriculture. Well, it's the same in the medical world. They move forward too, right? So so I had that done, and then he told me after that the surgery went well. The only thing was it was a partial removal, not a full removal, because there was the 2 pieces. So he ended up sending me to Sunnybrook Hospital in in Toronto, and to talk to them about two oncologists about chemotherapy and radiation. So I went there, had the big meeting and everything. And then, and I remember that was when it really hit. I walked into the cancer center at Sunnybrook and started sobbing and could not stop.
Oh, I bet.
There's like seeing people looking just, they looked like they were done. Like they felt like I'm a bit of a people reader, I guess you could say. And for me, just to see people so sad, and, you know, like some people, they were by themselves. And I just was thinking, like, you know, and you don't know anyone's story until they tell you. And it just, like, it broke my heart. There were little, like, I remember seeing a young, like, she was probably around my age. She was probably like 20, maybe a couple years younger. And, you know, she was completely bald, and she was stick thin, and everything. And then there's another lady though, and you could tell like she was swollen, but like, and I was like, oh, like, I just couldn't believe that this is cancer. Like this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what to expect. And I'd had a seizure after surgery. You know, and they say that's common though, because, well, they've been in there and everything, and your body's under a lot of stress. Yeah. So then, yeah, I ended up, they made the plan. So in June 1st, sorry, I should back up. Due to COVID, I was supposed to start radiation in April, and then COVID hit in March. And it really shuffled a lot of things around,
I guess.
As I'm sure you know. And so I ended up going to move everything back to Eastern Ontario, because it was just going to be hectic, like, to try and move everything and try and be, like, you know, conscious of COVID and everything, because I was immunocompromised with everything going on. It made more sense to move everything to Eastern Ontario.
Right.
And looking back now, I'm very glad that happened, that I was able to move that back. So I moved everything east, and I ended up starting radiation on June 1st, and did 30 treatments. So it was Monday to Friday. Did 30 treatments, and then ended up taking, I think it was a 5-week break between radiation, and then started chemo on September 7th in 2020, and then officially stopped chemo on March 14th, 2021, and went into remission.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
Wow.
It is amazing.
Wow. And so many of us follow you on the various social media platforms. And what really impacted me the most about your experience is the hope and positivity that you projected. Like, even in the darkest times, we knew you were struggling, but you always showed that glimmer of light and faith that you were going to win. So how did you manage to keep that frame of mind?
Well, I'm not going to lie. There were a lot of days where I would wake up and think, like, is this how the rest of my life is going to be? Like, stuck in bed because I'm so weak, I can't get out of bed.
Yeah.
You know, I felt like depressed about what was going on. But then, you know, for the most part though, you're right. I was very positive, and I still am very, you know, positive that things will get better. For me, the biggest thing though, well, it was two things. The first thing was my mindset. I kept my mind thinking that, you know, what can you control, like, in this situation? You know, I can't control, yes, I have cancer, but I can control though that, you know, I want to feel good about going to radiation, for example. So I had a playlist that I would always have playing, like, or not always have playing, but I'd have different songs playing and everything throughout radiation, and that I would bring. And it was always like really like motivational, fun songs and everything. And then it was just the power of music, and it kept my mind uh, thinking positively too. The other thing too was the support though of my friends and family. I remember, like, of course this was going through COVID and everything, right? So I remember one time I was really upset, and my dad was telling me, and I was like, well, what if it comes back? Like, what if I go through all of this and then it comes back? And he said to me, he said, well, but by that point there might be new technology out, and there might be new, yeah, like there might be new methods of treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And if it does come back, and I came to acceptance, and I guess that's kind of, I mentioned that before, but I came to acceptance that, what, yes, I have cancer, but what can I do about it? Well, the only thing I can do is do the best to stay positive and think that, and remind myself that, I can get through this. I just have to get through the next piece of this puzzle. So I just need to be able to get through that next radiation treatment, or I need to get through the next appointment or whatever it was. And like, the other thing too is I started getting into like meditation. And I can't talk about it enough, because I absolutely fell in love with meditation.
Wow.
It it is life changing. Do you meditate, Chrissy?
No, I pray, but I
Yeah.
don't. Yeah.
No, I pray as well, but
Mhm.
I also meditate, and it helps me so much manage the stress of what I was going through at the time.
Wow.
Um, and even now, I still meditate, because I'm just amazed how well it helps me with stress management and my positivity, and reminding myself that, like, I can do this.
Mhm.
It's incredible though, the amount of um, it just the what I was thinking is that at the time was that, it sucks to be in the situation that I'm in, but I am very grateful that I have access to the doctors that I do have. Um, like, special shout out to Dr. Doss from St. Mike's Hospital in Toronto, and Dr. Nicholas, my oncologist from the Ottawa Hospital Cancer Center. Um, but and I have access to food on the table, and I have access to great support through my dad. I have access to clean water, like I would always see, okay, but I'm so grateful though for the things that I have in my life. And this cancer is just one little thing. I can deal with it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what role did your faith have in all of this?
I prayed a lot, and just I really wanted to make sure that, like, I didn't want to complain to God about what I was going through. I wanted to thank him for giving me the opportunity to realize that, what, maybe I did need to slow down, because, well, look at me now. I'm back east, working back east, and I was in Western Ontario. I was in Saskatchewan before, and don't get me wrong, those experiences have helped shape who I am today, and I'm glad that I did those. But I realized while I was sick that I wanted to be home. This is home. Eastern Ontario is home to me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So,
amazing.
and I always, like, I believe that God has a plan laid out for each and every one of us, and that, what, maybe I got cancer because maybe he believed that I needed to stop and take a break and figure out what I wanted to do in my life to lead me to come back home.
Right. Yeah, that's an incredible way to look at it. And I think it's so important for all of us to think about not only what other people are going through, but really to appreciate every moment of every day. And so looking back now, how has the whole experience shaped the way that you think about life now?
Now I am, so during cancer treatment, I was grateful for every day. And now I am even more grateful for every day because now if I can wait, when I wake up in the morning, the fact that I can, I can get up and I can breathe. I, I can eat. I can do all these things and I can drive again.
Yay.
Yeah,
Great.
that's the major one.
Yeah.
But I feel so grateful though now. And the other thing too is like when I was talking about meditation and stress management, like before I used to get like really bad anxiety, or I'd get kind of nervous and be worried over such little things. And then now I'm like, you know what? Like I got through cancer, like I battled
You got
cancer
this.
and I won. Like
Yeah.
I can deal with this. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
For sure.
and I'm just, as I say, I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful um that I'm still here. I know that my tumor is what they call low grade high risk, meaning that it has a high risk of coming back. But I'm going to do what I can, and technology will keep evolving, and hopefully I will never be diagnosed again. And I really pray that no one else is diagnosed with this.
Yeah, for sure. And, on a smaller scale, for me, the pandemic was even a huge wake up call. And I think a lot of people feel that way. We really have to live life to the fullest every day and don't put off fulfilling your dreams till tomorrow. Like that's pretty much what inspired me to move to Southwest Florida last summer, right? It's, like you can't just put it off and say, well, someday. We don't have any promises on someday. We have to do it now. So what is your advice as we all begin 2022?
As we begin 2022, I think that everyone should write out 5 things that you are grateful for and 5 things that you need in your life and 5 things that you want in your life.
Wow.
And I think that you should look at all of those things together and see how you can make your wants a dream come true.
That's awesome advice. Yeah. And then now as we think about farmers, there's so much going on for farmers in our industry, right? And from so many directions, fuel increases, supply chain, weather, inflation. So what do you think their challenges look like? What does that look like going into 2022? And what can they do to overcome?
Well, I think that the first thing we need to look at though with all of these challenges is what opportunities does this offer us? Because one thing, so one of the products that a lot of farmers are talking about right now that is kind of held up by supply, just due to the supply chain and manufacturing and everything, is glyphosate. And most farmers, they use that every year as part of their crop protection program with their weed control. And the reality is, though, that now we're seeing a lot more glyphosate resistant weeds coming out, and we're discovering that. So in my opinion, I think that this might be a good opportunity where we can get into working with different crops that, you can still grow soybeans, but it just might have to be like a different variety that has a different genetic mutation to it that's able to handle like 2,4-D and Liberty, for example. So like some of those like enlist varieties. So, maybe this is a good opportunity because then it's going to be better. You may be better to control the weeds using a different, you will be able to better control the weeds using a different group, like herbicide active. So I think that this is a really good opportunity in that sense. And I think that we need to kind of shift our thinking a little, which is very tough in these times. And don't get me wrong, I realize we still need glyphosate. and I realize that we still need fertilizer. But again, maybe this is an opportunity where you can think, okay, well, what do I want to be growing next year when it comes to fertilizer? What do I want to be growing next year that if it's soybeans, for example, don't be putting soybeans on soybeans. Well, if there's residual nitrogen from the year before, maybe this is an opportunity where you can put, putting wheat there or corn there, and then that way you're using up the natural nitrogen that's already there, and that kind of thing. I think the other thing too is just for the farmers and for egg retails and everyone in egg business, egg world, everyone is stressed right now because of the shortages and of the price increases and everything. But, let's be kind to each other in 2022, because already there's been some anger or some stress. And I think we need to realize that everyone's feeling that.
That's it. Yeah. A little grace can go a long way right now, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, but remember that the people that are working at the egg retail are there to help you, and they're not trying to, get every penny out of you right now. They're trying to help you and figure it out. So, just work together.
Yes.
Not against each other.
Excellent advice. So where can people find you, follow your journey, connect with you over agronomy?
Yeah. So if you go on Twitter, my handle is Kelsey Banks. Very easy. It's KelseyBanks. And you can also find me on LinkedIn as well. And yeah, I guess that's kind of how you can find me. Or if you go on the Embrun Co-op website and you go to the crops division and then crop representatives, I'm listed there.
Awesome. Very good. And I have one last question. So after all of this, what were you put on this earth to accomplish? Do you know that now? And do you know your purpose?
I think my purpose is that I was put on this earth to make farmers smile. And I know that sounds
that.
I know this sounds so
I love it.
I don't know what the word is for that, but I want to be able, though, for me, I always feel happiest whenever I can help a farmer and be able to say, okay, you know what, let's look at it this way, or how do you feel about doing this, or something like that with their agronomy and their crop planning, and being able to see them smile and be happy about what's going on and say, you know what, you're right, I can do that. I think my purpose is to make them smile and motivate them and say, yes, you can do it. I'm here, almost like holding your hand in quotations,
right.
Along the way.
That's awesome. I love that. So thank you so much for joining me. Great conversation. I really love your advice. And I totally appreciate you coming on today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
And thanks to everyone who's watching or listening. If you want more information, the links are provided in the show notes. And don't forget to subscribe to North American Ag Spotlight on YouTube or Rumble or AgFuse. And the podcast is available on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, Amazon, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And have a great day. Thanks so much for listening to today's Ag Spotlight episode, where we put the spotlight on people and companies doing great things for the agricultural industry. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Stitcher, or on your favorite podcasting platform, and give us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on YouTube and Rumble to see the video version of Ag Spotlight. Also, head on over to NorthAmericanAg.com to subscribe to our Industry Connect update newsletter. If you're interested in advertising opportunities, email us at connect@NorthAmericanAg.com. Thanks for listening.